Imagine the year is 2024. We now live in a world where transferring value between people and institutions is seamless and instantaneous. The process of settling securities trades has been dramatically streamlined, and intermediaries have been eliminated from many transactions. The Internet of Things has flourished, and machine-to-machine payments are enabled by microtransactions that settle on blockchains. Financial inclusion is at an all-time high, and access to financial services has been greatly improved. These technologies have had the effect of giving users more control and security over their data. Countries are even issuing digital representations of their currencies, inspired by the characteristics they see in Bitcoin. The question is, are we prepared for this future?
And with that, please join me with a warm welcome for CEO Abby Johnson.
Hello, I'm Abby Johnson, CEO of Fidelity Investments. Some of you might be wondering, why am I here today? Well, I can tell you plenty of my colleagues back in Boston are asking the same question. I'm here because I love this stuff. Bitcoin, Ethereum, blockchain technology, all that the future might hold. At Fidelity, we have a standing meeting where my team and I get regular updates about all of the Bitcoin and blockchain-related projects that we're working on. And meanwhile, my 21 mini miner whirls away, minting millions of Satoshis that maybe someday I'll find a use for. What you heard in the introduction was a future scenario that we painted 3 years ago when we first started working in this area. It's a future where Bitcoin and blockchain thrived. We still think this scenario has a reasonable chance of coming to pass, despite what the skeptics say. The question is, why is it so much harder than it seemed like it was going to be 3 years ago? Part of the reason I'm here, other than to share some insights about our journey, is to ask you, the community, to help us address some of the hurdles that we see. And there are several that are holding back the adoption of this technology. We want to get after these hurdles, but we can't do it alone. We need to work together. I'm in a traditional financial services business, but even we at Fidelity can see that the evolution of technology is setting up our industry for disruption. What if this new technology could do for the transfer of value what the internet did for the transfer of information? There would be greater access to financial services, and potentially customers would have more control over their data. This transformation could complement lots of other innovative areas that we see emerging, like the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and the transformation of applications to the public cloud. These platforms shouldn't develop in a vacuum. They need each other to reach their true potential. Traditional players like us need to resist the urge to evaluate these technologies through the lens of the present. We need to reimagine these products and services that will be enabled in the future. You all in this room understand this, and you are building right now these products and services. So what have we been up to? We've been investing in our blockchain efforts. We've been researching, we've been experimenting, and we've been learning. We've made venture investments in TradeBlock, Axoni, and Boost VC. Our innovation group, Fidelity Labs, has a dedicated team that is building capabilities in this space through research and experiments. We've partnered with IDEO CoLabs as well as the Institute for the Future to explore blockchain use cases. We've also engaged some academic partnerships with the MIT Digital Currency Initiative, the University College London, and IC3. We did this because a lot of promising work is happening in open source communities. And academia plays an important role in pressure testing what they come up with. Our Bits and Box Club has educated thousands of Fidelity associates through guest lectures from experts like Jerry Brito, Vitalik Buterin, and Nick Szabo, just to name a few. But for all of our interesting experiments, most have hit one roadblock or another due to the emerging nature of this technology. Nevertheless, our teams have forged ahead. We have built proofs of concept for Bitcoin microtransactions. We set up a small Bitcoin and Ethereum mining operation done completely in the spirit of just learning, but miraculously now we're actually making a lot of money. We enabled Bitcoin in our cafeteria and expanded the total merchant base in Boston by 100%. That said, we've had fewer than 100 employees purchase with Bitcoins. Guess we have a lot of hodlers. We have, however, been able to address some real Bitcoin-related needs. A couple of years ago, we discovered through some of our research that there were people who were looking to use Bitcoin to make donations to their favorite charities. In response, we partnered with Coinbase to allow them to contribute Bitcoin to their donor-advised funds with Fidelity Charitable. So far, to date, we've facilitated over $8 million of Bitcoin contributions through that platform. Thanks. We've also heard from through our studies, a desire from our customers to see their digital currency holdings along with their other accounts. We started recently by enabling our employees to be able to see their Coinbase holdings on Fidelity.com. So I'm happy to announce that we'll soon be rolling out this functionality to all of our customers. We're evaluating other distributed ledger technologies too. We've looked at replicating some current processes like repo transactions in a blockchain environment. And we've participated in some industry experiments, but we've run into some barriers on this front. A lot of the use cases that seem to get presented could likely be addressed without a blockchain. So this is what we've been doing. The real question is, what have we been learning? A question that we keep coming back to is, how will the customer experience these new innovations? So let's, for a minute here, cover what we learned when we analyzed user behavior with Bitcoin wallets. In one experiment that we ran this with employees, including me. We gave everybody local wallets, and we studied the experience that we all had with private keys and making purchases. Not surprisingly, some of the people in the experiment were quite perplexed. You see, when people are exposed to new concepts, they need to make sense of something that they don't already have a mental model for. And that's hard to do. So our research teams noticed what was happening when people encountered their recovery phrase for the first time. They tended to struggle because they didn't have a mental model for this new thing. People tended to react in one of three ways. First, they might apply an existing mental model, trying to compare it with something they were already familiar with, kind of like comparing a computer to a typewriter. Second, some people were able to develop a new mental model, but that's hard and it takes a little time and patience. Thirdly, some people just quit and ran away and just didn't ever adopt the technology. So the most common thing that we saw in our experiment was that most of our Bitcoin users adopted the first approach. They tried to compare it to something they were already familiar with. Maybe that's just because we didn't let them quit and run away. So what did they compare it to? Some of the users treated the recovery phrase like a password. And so this isn't all bad. These users were inclined to keep the phrase in a safe place and never reveal it. But some of them also expected that maybe there would be somewhere a forgot my password button that they could press if they ever lost it. So no, it wasn't that part of it wasn't a good mental model. Other people tended to treat it like an authentication ID. And that's good in some ways too. They generally recorded the phrase and kept it in a safe place, kind of like a social security card. The bad part was that some of those users also believed that this ID would somehow allow Fidelity to provide fraud alerts on their account. So that was definitely not a good thing for them to assume. Lastly, we saw some users who treated it like an activation code. So this generally was not a good thing because those people assumed that the code was just for one-time use to get started and then discarded it. So at least I guess no one could steal it if that happened. So usability is a bit of a challenge now. But what we have come to realize is that if you only look at this technology through the lens of the problems that exist today, you won't find a lot of compelling use cases, at least not that can be implemented at scale. If you're looking for Bitcoin to beat Visa at the point of sale today, you'll be disappointed. If you're looking at this technology as just a faster settlement system for financial transactions, you'll also be disappointed. But I am still a believer. And it's no accident that I'm one of the few standing before you today from a large financial services company that has not given up on digital currencies. I'd like to think that huge new markets and products are going to be built on these open platforms. But before this can happen, we need to address several barriers to adoption. And there are several. First, the technology problem. There are still questions to be answered about the core technology, but I'm confident that there's good progress being made in this area. We understand that these are important trade-offs that have to get made as these systems grow. We care about the trade-offs between scalability, privacy, and achieving peer-to-peer settlement. It seems like right now you can't have all three. Today, privacy is a core customer need, and it's especially important to us. So this is an area of investment for our groups. Secondly, the policy challenge. The innovation here is happening fast, and it's outpacing the regulators' ability to keep up. The same way the users that we studied defaulted to known mental models, all the regulators are going to have to go through that same kind of a learning process, and it will cause some growing pains. And in order for this technology to reach its true potential, we need solutions that protect customer interests. We also need to continue to work with regulators to have an open dialogue about this technology. At our end, Fidelity will be working closely with leading policy groups, including Coin Center, who are focused on these critical issues. Thirdly, we have the control challenge. Networks like Bitcoin and Ethereum by design have no formalized management structure. They're open projects, anyone is free to fork, and this is great. But companies like ours that build products on these platforms don't have the clarity about the future path that they might take or how to influence the developer communities. Control is also an issue for private networks. The financial services industry will need to work to understand the risks associated with who controls the features of these new systems. Last but not least, the human problem. We are forgetting the humans. I can't emphasize this last point enough. We need to come up with use cases for this technology that drive clear benefits for individuals and institutions. Too often, we see Bitcoin and blockchain technologies as solutions in search of a problem. We don't just need these systems to be technically better, we need them to be more user-friendly. The human problem came to life for me when I heard a story about one of our associates, Alex, who was an early Bitcoin adopter and a huge believer. At Fidelity, we have a special name for people like Alex, the Bitcoin Vikings, named for their adventurous spirit, not the raiding and plundering part. Bitcoin Vikings are first movers. They are active and vocal evangelists. They see Bitcoin as revolutionary, and they're technically sophisticated. Anyway, our Viking Alex volunteered for some testing that we were doing, and our team gave him the task of buying something with Bitcoin and then returning it. So Alex went to our cafeteria and he bought a drink, and then he tried to return it a couple of hours later. Well, it turned out on that particular day, the network was being spam attacked, and the mempool was fully backed up, and the return was taking hours. And he just gave up. And it wasn't just that he gave up. He was totally dejected. And this is what he said about his experience. It's like the Matrix. I can't actually use it in real life. We need to make this technology more user-friendly. It can't be like the Matrix. And there is so much opportunity to create great customer experiences. This is a technology that can frustrate, but can also create moments of extreme joy. For example, when Lucy, who's on our design thinking team, generated her first Bitcoin wallet recovery phrase, the first 3 words were "embark Brave ketchup. She loved it. And in fact, her team loved it so much, they decided to use it as their project code name going forward. So, by the way, don't try to brute force that wallet. The Bitcoin's already been moved. So, the point is, we have the opportunity to make products that inspire joy. And we can inspire this joy in our customers, and that's what we should be trying to do. So, as you can see, we've been on quite a journey. The thing about breakthrough new technologies like the internet or blockchain is that there's a temptation to look at the future through the lens of the present. After all, the internet wasn't just a more efficient way to send letters, it spawned new industries. Blockchain technology isn't just a more efficient way to settle transactions, it can fundamentally change market structures and perhaps even the architecture of the internet itself. When it's combined potentially with technologies like artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things and the applications running in the public cloud, there's no way of predicting the innovative potential that could be out there on the horizon. The internet we deserve is just around the corner, right? The compression just needs to surpass the theoretical limit of 2.9 Wiseman score. Richard Hendricks, anyone? You out there? So that's why I jumped at the opportunity to come speak at this conference here today. I'm asking of all of you, you are the community that will